We're with Larry Millas and Jim Peterik studio. Welcome to the Musician, Technician, Entrepreneur podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Thank you.
Thanks for letting us invade your space.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, when did you start playing music, and when did you know that you wanted to go on the kind of path of music?
I was always interested in music. When I was about 3 years old, I'd stand in front of the jukebox. It was at the restaurant that we would go to. My brother went to school up in Lake Geneva, a military academy, and we'd make trips up to Lake Geneva, and there was a restaurant there, a jukebox, and I'd stand in front of the jukebox, and we'd feed money into it, and I'd stand there and dance, and I'd listen to it. I've always had the ability to pick things apart as I listen to it. I can hear the individual things that are going on. Whereas I found out years later that most people just listen to the
Entirety of it?
Yeah, the entirety of it as like a painting or something, or just like a blur of colors. And I'm looking at all the dots that go into each color thing, that make up the music. So as I progressed into school, I gravitated to the choirs. And initially, I had like a soprano voice. I mean, I was singing in the same range as any girl could, and so forth. And I had really good pitch. And I knew that from the get-go, because most of the kids around me didn't. and it upset me. It was like, sing it right. Well, I'm trying. I was like, okay. Now, I never was in the school bands like the other guys in the Ides. I'm in the Ides of March.
Yeah.
And the other guys in the Ides were all in the grade school band. They went through that system. I never did that. I was in the choirs. And there was a madrigal choir in grade school that was only for the 8th graders. And I made it into there in the 5th grade.
Wow.
So I had years of experience by the time I was in 8th grade. We were doing the more difficult things and so forth. And then as I went into high school, once again, I was in the senior choir my freshman year. So I was very proud of that fact.
Yeah.
But I fit right in. I mean, like, they weren't doing anything that I didn't understand. And I could sight read, just by rote, just by doing it.
Did you take piano at all?
I did for about a year.
Yeah.
But that was back in like 5th grade, 6th grade, so forth. So I understood patterns on the keyboard. I understood scales. And I just had a natural, ability to harmonically think. And once again, my sense of good pitch. Now, that's, as I've gotten older, it's harder to sing in good pitch, because the physicality of it gets more and more difficult. In fact, just recently, I began to lose my singing voice, which was frightening. The Ides of March are basically, for whatever impression you have of us, vehicle with the big horns and rock guitars. The horns. Here's an interesting thing. The horns in the Ides of March are an extension of the electric guitars. They're not traditional horn parts, or the thinking isn't even like horns. It's like more guitars.
Played on horns.
Yeah, and that's how we write parts for the Ides. That's what makes us unique in a lot of ways from horn bands. I was losing my singing voice. Yeah. The Ides of March are our vocal group. That's what we are. Like, we can, Jim will pick up acoustic guitar, and we'll do the national anthem, say, and it's like, oh my God, it's it's like Crosby, Stills, and Who. It's like a thing. That's really who we are. So losing my singing voice was, getting more and more frightening. And it was just accumulation of old age and bad habits. Not really understanding what makes the mechanics of good singing, which I started working with a vocal coach from Lewis University. My wife's vocal coach, actually, she's a legit singer. I started working with him, and he like tore it apart and figured out what I'm doing. And he saw, in a minute, and we've been working on it now for almost 4 years. I got my voice back, and it's better than I've been in the last 35 years.
Wow.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a gift, but it's baby steps. You know, each week work on something else, get a little better at this, blah blah blah. But oh my God, made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you know, in high school, right, freshman year, you know, everything's new. That fall, the Beatles
Changed life.
changed
Yeah.
my life. It changed the life of countless numbers of
Me too.
kids.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. And I was supposed to be a doctor, like my dad. You know, what are you going to do when you grow up? Oh, I'm going to be a doctor. And you know, I was an A student. You know, I felt as though I could do that. But you know, like as high school progressed, and it's not just like I sloughed off. I mean, I literally didn't have that palate. I couldn't memorize the technical names. I could understand the biology things, and so, but I wasn't meant to be a doctor. I think I had the intellect for it, but I didn't have the memory for it. It's also an interesting thing. I'm a numbers person. I'm a math person, which translates to music, you know, very well. I'm not a word person. And I found as I've gotten older, there are people like that, you know. There are definite, like, divisions. Some people are definitely word people, and they're not numbers people. You know,
Yeah.
so at least I know my limitations.
Yeah, yeah.
And I try to do workarounds. You know, like Jim will come up with a new song or something, and in the Ides, a lot of times we'll split up the parts. Like I'll start on a verse a little lower range. We had a song in we recorded in '65. It was on the air in '66. It's called "You Wouldn't Listen to Me," and it was very much like the Beau Brummels or the. I'm trying to think of a good example. I think Beau Brummels is the best example I can come up with quickly. But the verse starts out, and it's me, okay? And then Jim is doing this answer thing. And then it gets to the pre-chorus, and the whole thing's like a third higher, and Jim's singing that. He's got a higher voice than I do. And so even now, like, he'll write something new, and it's like, okay, well, let's split the vocal. You know, I'll do the lower first part. I can't remember the words for the life of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's frightening to me. Like,
Yeah.
when it comes up to a performance, I literally can't remember. So I have to have cue cards. I have to have large letter things down the front of the stage. I'm not quite to the teleprompter level yet. But I got to have some things that will trigger, oh yeah, it's that sentence, you know. My God, the things you run into. You know, but you learn how to, you know, move forward. You know, how to deal with things. But boy, the Beatles changed my life. You know, it became pretty obvious pretty quickly that, you know, I didn't want to put the energy into the medical thing. I just didn't have that passion like my dad had. He was a wonderful surgeon and a GP. I used to go on house calls with him. That's part of why I thought I was going to be a doctor, because I was around it all the time. Yeah, music just kind of took over.
So when did you start playing guitar?
Well, God, it must have been a week or two after the first appearance on Ed Sullivan, you know, went and bought a guitar. And I wanted to start a band, right? And I was in with my classmate Bob Berglund, who lived about a block and a half away from my house. I've known Bob for literally my whole life. Mm-hmm. Our moms were in the hospital at the same time, in the same hospital room.
No kidding.
So I've literally known Bob my whole life. Let's start a band. Okay, yeah, but we need a lead guitarist. You know, somebody who's better than we are. You know, and we went to see. And there was this band. You know, they're called the Renegades. And their front guy, you know, he just had confidence, and he was singing good, and he knew like more than 3 chords. You know, and it was impressive. The rest of the band really sucked, but he was a standout. I said, well, we got to talk to this guy. So we found out who he was, and he lives, you know, like 4 blocks from my house. So we went over there and knocked on the front door.
Trick or treat.
Yeah, door open. We want to, we want to talk to Jim. He's standing there, slams the door in our face. It was like a situation comedy. I'm saying, I look over at Bob like, what just happened? I don't know. So we knocked again, and his mom came to the door and said, "Are you looking for Jim?" I said, "Yeah, we thought we had him, but he slammed the door in there." Well, that wasn't very nice. Well, I'll go get him. Yeah. She went, "Jim, there's nice boys here to talk with you." It was Jim Peterik. By the time we got past the first introductions and so forth, and we determined, Bob and I could sing. The guys in the Renegades couldn't. And Jim was sold. That's it. Done. He was in our band. And it was that way ever since.
And what year was that in your school? Were you like a junior in high school, a sophomore in high school?
Freshman.
Freshman? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim was 1 year behind us. He was still in 8th grade when we first approached him.
Wow.
Yeah. So, in high school, we were playing all the sock hops, and I'm sure you guys know this, but in the Chicago area, in that time period, there were teen clubs. Bands could play, and kids would show up, and they'd pay like, $2 at the door or something like that, and you'd have a gathering of 300-400 kids in an abandoned grocery store or something like that, and it was a place. And over the years, like those grew, more official and nicer and so forth. We made the circuit of the teen clubs. It gave us a place to get better, and to build a following. There was a place in Westmont, a notable place. It's called the Blue Village. And if you went to the Blue Village, you were playing for an important crowd there. We played there. Other local bands of note, the Crying Shames played there. New Colony 6 played there. The Shadows of Night, whose home area was at Arlingtonites, at a place called the Cellar. It was another notable teen club. But the Cellar would get in, acts from out of town, like they had in Paul Revere and the Raiders, and they had this band. I don't know where they're from, England or something like that. They had the Who at the Cellar.
Oh, wow.
Come on, give me a break.
Yeah.
Who knew at the time? But they were like a special thing, and you could see them for $2, and the place was packed, and that kind of thing. But the whole teen club scene was just so exciting. It was full of hope and energy and looking toward the future, And it wasn't so much about, honing your craft as a musician. Of course, there were requirements. You had to be good. You had to be in tune. But it wasn't so much about that, although that was in fact a requirement. But it was about being part of the whole movement, literally riding at the top of the wave, that was swelling. So much fun. But what an amazing time to be, that age, doing what we were doing. We were one of the first of the local bands that just called up the recording studio and went in and recorded. We just, like our parents drove us to the studio. We weren't old enough to drive, and we do sessions. We, pay money and we do recording sessions, and we try to get it on the radio. We were self-starters then. We came up with a master plan, which seems to still work for us. But, you go and you do it. That's the master plan.
You go and you do it.
Yeah, and that speaks to our awareness of, although we didn't even know this at the time, but it speaks to our awareness of people build, besides the natural resistances in life, the natural brick walls that exist. And so if we build our own brick walls out of fear and just feeling helpless, and if you just disregard all that, if you don't even think about that as even being there, you just go and you do it. And a lot of times it's a positive result.
Well, that's going to be one of the nuggets of the wisdom of this podcast right there. Go and do it.
Just go and do it.
Just go and do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing for sure is if something's going to stop you from doing it, it's the most powerful thing there is you. You know, people will not do something because of fear.
So what was the studios that you guys went to? Did you go to a bunch of different studios?
Yeah, we went to a number of studios.
Yeah.
First we went to a place called MBS, which was Mutual Broadcasting System, I believe.
Yeah.
And they had the state-of-the-art 3-track recorder. Yeah, where you could record the band in stereo, and then you could add a mono overdub track.
Nice.
I mean, it's just like unheard of. It was actually developed for film work. But they were starting to use it for, pop recording, rock and roll recording. So that was the first multi-track that we worked on. And then that picture that's over there, we're wearing our wigs and our Beatle boots and our, like you couldn't have long hair, right? So we had wigs. They were $400.
Wow.
That was,
Yeah.
you could buy a used car for $400.
Yeah.
So it was a major commitment. Anyway, so that studio was Sound Studios, which coincidentally, the week before we got into Sound Studios, another local group had gotten in there. These guys were a couple years older than us, but they were on the same track. They worked with the same engineer. His name was Stu Black. And they recorded a song called Sugar and Spice, which was, of course, the Crying Shames. And within a year or so, we came to idolize the Crying Shames. I mean, they were the example of the explosive, crowd-killing live show, that we would go and stand in the front row and experience. We'd soak that up. And we took a lot of that, to heart in our later existence. We sought out another studio that, once again, it was one of those things where you go and you do it. We called the studio and said, can we book, a session there, like a 3-hour session? Yeah, sure, we're open, next Saturday afternoon or whatever it was. We had heard about a place called Chess Studios. And the Rolling Stones were rumored to have just been in there recently. And so we were like, okay, well, it must be good. So we went in there, and it was a piece of history. We learned lessons from going to the original Chess, which was at 2120 South Michigan Avenue. We went in there probably 3, 4, or 5 times, something like that. I can't remember exactly. And then the Chess Brothers actually closed that studio at that time, and they opened up the new Chess Studios, where they rolled in the new 2-inch tape, 12-track recorder.
All right.
Before 16-track recording.
So it was a 2-inch 12-track.
That's right.
Wow.
I think there were just a couple of those machines actually built, or those heads, at least. And you think, you've heard of like 2-inch 8-track machines. Okay, it's double the width.
Right.
Okay, I get that. And of course, 16-track machines became the standard. But this was a 12-track, and we were one of the first sessions on the 12-track at the new Chess Studios. A little piece of history that nobody cares about, but it meant a lot to us.
Yeah.
It was really cool. And they had the coolest reverb chambers there. There was constantly a 2-track machine moving like at a very slow speed, probably 3 3/4 in the back of the control room, always rolling. And they just had a feed into that, and then that would feed into a plate reverb stuff.
Really?
And they had a delayed tape with a little bit of feedback on it into a plate. And that was a sizzly, very particular reverb sound that Chess Studios had. It would make voices sound explosive in a track. So that was cool. It was one of our favorite little things. And then later on, when we were recording for Warner Brothers and later on RCA, well, okay, here's another little piece of history. We recorded a vehicle at the brand new CBS recording studio, which had their brand new 2-inch 16-track machine rolled in the week before we did our session there. So it kind of tells you in history, the timeline,
Yeah.
you know, this is all happening. Now, they didn't even have an auto locator remote control for it. You had to sit, back by the machine and hit the buttons on the machine, which is fine because you'd have a primary engineer be sitting at the console, second engineer be running the machine. That's how you would get around that at that time. But the inexperienced second engineer on the session, when we went to do, we did a first take on vehicle. It's real good, real good. There was a flaw or two or something. Okay, well, let's just do another take. We went to do another take, and the second engineer accidentally had the whole machine in record ready for a fresh take, but he punched into the take on vehicle and wiped about 12 seconds on the master take. The master take was the second take. We were going to do a fix. So we had the first take, on the reel. The second take was the master take, that's it.
Yeah.
And then we were going to do some, and he left the whole machine in record ready. And he wiped 12 seconds of thing, and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, the first engineer said, okay, look, why don't you guys go take a walk, and I'll fix this. He went back to the first take. He took out that 12 seconds, the first take, he laid it into the second take with a razor blade.
Yeah.
Had the piece of tape, put it in, boom. That's what the record has.
No kidding.
It's got a whole section there that came from the first take. And this was before anybody was recording with any kind of metronome, click tracks or anything.
Right.
It just worked.
Wow.
It was pretty cool. Wow. I was telling you about my guitar, my Epiphone guitar, the Epiphone Riviera. It's the same type of guitar that John Lennon played, which was a Casino, Epiphone Casino, except the Casino's got the larger nickel pickups, and the Riviera, like mine, has the more narrow pickups. Mm-hmm. It's the same instrument. So Jim went to play the solo on vehicle. He picked up his guitar. He started, doing a couple of moves. Boing! He broke a string. It's like, oh, I don't have any extra strings. So I said, well, here, why don't you use the Epiphone? You play the solo on this. And at the time, Jim was used to just playing a Les Paul, and the neck on the Epiphone is actually much more narrow than a Les Paul. But he just, okay, great, just fine. Jim did a one-take pass on that solo. First time he ever played those licks. Never played that before. That was it. And he had to go back and learn it.
Yeah, right.
Now, if you're a guitar player, you realize what that is. It's like an inside-out part. It's not what you think it is. It's really weird. It's very hard to actually play that part exactly like the record. He had to go back and really figure out what the heck he did. Because the fingering, the positioning, it was like weird. And the managers said, well, we only got one take at the lead. Don't you want to do another take? And they went back in the next week and laid down a couple alternate lead parts. And they all really sucked. Yeah. So we just went with the one, and that's the trademark, lead solo on vehicle. Just came out of nowhere. It came from somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And we played an acetate of that for our friend Art Roberts, who was a famous DJ here in town. He was at, I believe Art Roberts was on WLS at the time. There were 4 songs on the acetate. Okay, Vehicle was the last one. And the managers said, Art, for radio, what do you think? Because he was a DJ, he's playing songs every day. Mm-hmm. He's a friend. And listen through. Oh, well, that's your hit. And I was like, yeah, that's it. I mean, no doubt. And our managers, at the same time, they get the same kind of feedback from Warner Brothers. They sent an acetate, which is the way you listen to things. An acetate is it's a lacquer sprayed disc of aluminum that's cut, just like a record, like with a lathe,
Yeah.
and like a master record. Like they cut it in the back room at the recording studio. It cuts the grooves in the lacquer, right? And it's only good for a couple dozen plays, and then it's gone. I mean, because it just wears that. It's not the depth of a record. Like the aluminum disc, it's just a surface where they spray on the vinyl.
Okay.
It sounds good, but it only sounds good for a couple dozen plays,
Yeah.
and then it's finished. Anyway, so he used to like mail these things, like around the country. And our manager sent one to Warner Brothers, 4 songs. They listen. Oh, well, that's the single. Okay, we're getting the same feedback from a number of people. And Art Roberts said, you really should, on the one part, you should add background vocals. I love you, need you, love you, need you. Oh, okay, we could do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we went back into CBS studios. There were no tracks left. To which we used up all 16 tracks. How was that? No, they had a mix on the song, right? A 2-track mix, sounds great, needs background vocals. So we did what they called a wild track, where they play the 2-track and you sing live at the right times, and you're recording the mix and the live vocals to another 2-track.
Okay.
So it's a wild track. Like that background vocal track doesn't exist anywhere. It only exists on the master.
Oh, wow.
So we did that. It was a live performance, right? We're singing along with the mix.
And it's mixed, right?
And it's mixed. That's it. There's no,
It's done. Wow.
there's no post. That's it.
Yeah.
You make your decisions now, And I love you, need, 3-part. Boom. Done. Ready for the air. Okay, so now we got that, and we got Warner Brothers who wants to distribute it, sign a contract with them, blah, blah, blah. And now we have to, break the record. Well, our managers at the time were Frank Rand and Bob Destocki. Frank Rand worked for CBS as their local promo man, and Bob Destocki worked for Warner Brothers as their local promo man. And so he'd always be dealing with artists as they came into town, or if somebody had a new record out, they'd make sure it goes out to all the stations. They'd call the stations. And
These were Chicago guys?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were here in Chicago, but they handle the whole Midwest. A circle probably as big as Minneapolis, over to Cleveland, down to, Indianapolis, Nashville, Kansas City, like that whole circle of the country. In fact, the Chicago region, it's called a 10% region, because it would account for 10% of all record sales worldwide, not just in this country. So it was an important zone.
Yeah.
And these 2 guys were the guys for CBS and Warner Brothers. So they had interested in Warner Brothers in signing us and so forth. But so they had a lot of friends, out there in the radio world. But one of their biggest friends was changing jobs the weekend that the vehicle was supposed to hit. His name was John Rook, and he was program director here at WLS in Chicago, and he was moving out to Los Angeles because he'd been offered a bigger job at KTLA, I think it was called, a big rock station out in Los Angeles. He said, "All right, guys, I'm going to do you a favor here. I'm going to contact my guys at Atlanta and Miami and Dallas, and I'm going out to LA. I'm going to put this record on the air here in Chicago. I'm going to go out to LA. We're going to play it there on Monday, and it's going to break the rest of the week in the other regions." So Vehicle was one of the first singles that broke nationally in a single swipe. In those days, records would break out regionally. Like you'd have a hit in New York, and then it would kind of spread to Miami or Atlanta, and then it would sweep westward, and you'd see it on Dick Clark, and then it would start to hit the West Coast, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And you'd have singles break in regions, and it took a while for that to happen. A Vehicle broke nationally in the major regions in this country in 1 week.
Wow.
So it was the fastest breaking record that Warner Brothers had ever released. You know, instantly went to the top of the charts. And we've had a hell of a ride ever since.
Really?
Like a rocket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're very lucky to have that, and boy, do we know it. But it was just a whole lot of things lined up at the same time.
So was there a lot of national touring after that broke?
There was. I think the next 2 years, out of a possible, 600 dates or whatever, we literally worked like 500 days.
Whoa.
It was unbelievable. I mean, we'd go out, and this was before there were things as, touring. They didn't have like, touring companies and touring producers and, it's all, our booking agents strung together a bunch of one-nighters. And we played here and we played there. We used to get him a dartboard and he'd throw it over his shoulder. And Monday, Tuesday, and you'd end up driving 700 miles or 100 miles or it was just crazy. Yeah, we were young and
So
able to
that
do
was
it.
no college then, that was right, that was your gig.
That in that time period, we went to college and we played gigs.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. So we played like that summer, like there wasn't an open day. And then in the fall, we went to school. We had dates on a Wednesday night. You go out and you play in Iowa City and you drive back. You go to school the next morning. It was, or you played in Milwaukee and you come home. And,
all of you guys were in college?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a little nuts.
A little.
Yeah. We had a pilot, his name was Dirty Dan, as we affectionately called him. We'd fly places in Twin Beach. And then later on, our managers handled another band called Chase, famous Bill Chase. And his thing, Bill Chase came from the Woody Herman Orchestra. He was first chair.
Yeah, I saw him a
Trumpet.
few times, amazing.
Yeah, it was like, Doc Severinsen on steroids, it was just amazing. So Chase, I bought a DC-3. So either we'd rent the Twin Beach, we'd rent the DC-3, and we'd fly out on a Friday afternoon, and we'd come back on a Sunday night, doing dates. And we did this for a number of years. But boy, you didn't sleep, you didn't.
So what were some of the things you guys took in college? Why did you even want to continue? Why did you continue through college and do that instead of just focus on creating music?
Because, music was the fun thing, but you have to have, some real life stuff to stand on. Like our bass player, Bob, he owns a real estate management company. They handle something like 400 buildings or something. He's got a couple thousand employees. I mean, he's a real business guy.
Yeah.
A regular big business, Well, Bob was the guy who was always, doing the accounting for homework while we're on the plane. He's sitting there with a light and, doing his homework and so forth. Jim had philosophy classes and literature classes and stuff that fed his writing instincts and so forth. It's not like he was studying auto mechanics or something.
What'd you study?
I ended up going to the American Conservatory of Music, which was attached to Roosevelt at the time, which is where the guys in Chicago went also. They went to the same thing. And I took music courses so that I would understand, the business of music, management of music, the construction of music, the history of music, and just kind of fine-tuned the stuff that I naturally knew, but then I could actually speak in terms that would relate to other musicians that were outside of our band.
So when you would come back on Sunday nights to go back to school, you'd be all going your own ways to different places to go to school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we were all still in Chicago. I mean, but then we'd have a rehearsal on Tuesday night or something.
Yeah.
We'd have a gig,
next
Peoria on Thursday night, or it was nonstop band stuff. For us, the band has always been the priority. It has to be. If it's going to work, you got to be there to participate. So if we got a gig, the world stops and we do that. But we all do other stuff. I'm a recording engineer.
So when did that kick in? When did
Well, yeah,
that kind of get into the
when I had time to do that, when the Ides, and when Jim decided to do a solo career for a while, and the Ides sort of ceased to exist in 1973, at the end of 73. I was always the one that was interested in sound systems, equipment. I used to draw sound systems. I'd be sitting there in my English class, making drawings of a large sound system and the signal flow of things. So I decided that I wanted to have a recording studio. So I deployed the master plan, and I went and I did it.
Did you second engineer for some places, or?
Well, I did. I apprenticed at Paragon Studios, which at the time they were doing the Ohio Players and Styx. Those were two major clients.
Was that by the Frankfurt area where Styx was from?
No. It was downtown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Paragon was at 9 East Huron.
Oh, okay.
Just off State Street. And I worked with an engineer there who mostly worked at Universal Studios, which is where the Ides recorded some stuff. But the engineer that I got to work with at Paragon was a guy named Bruce Swedin. And of course, Bruce Swedin went on to greatness when he moved out to Los Angeles and hooked up with Quincy and Michael Jackson and all thing. He was the guy. Right place, right time, right skills, and just a mega career. But I spent some time seconding for him and learning from him. I was at Paragon probably for 7 months, 8 months, something like that. And then I decided to do it on my own. Because I had a pretty good idea of what was needed to be done. And at the time it was difficult. When you had to buy this big honking 24-track recorder, and you had to have some monster board to be competitive, and microphones. I mean, who can afford $2,500 mic?
Right.
And you could buy a new Ford Pinto for $19.95.
Yeah.
And it's like.
So this was mid-'70s.
Yeah, I was in '74. I built a studio with a partner whose uncle actually owned a building. It was a truck garage, and we built a place called Tanglewood.
Heard of Tanglewood.
Yeah, and ran that place for almost 9 years. And then I decided to work with some other people and build a downtown studio, because if you're going to put in those kind of hours, you might as well be increasing your cash flow. If I'm going to work 65 hours a week, I might as well be making more money. So we built a big downtown studio called River North Recorders. And that became a really big success for a while.
Did you work with Steve Schaefer?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, he was a good friend. I was the best man in his wedding.
Oh, come on, really?
Yeah.
Oh, he was a sweetheart of a guy.
Yeah. He had a synclavier. He was the guy.
Oh, he was the guy?
Yeah.
But the big coup was that those guys were going to leave their agent, their music houses. They were going to form Schaefer and Tellis.
Yeah, right.
Right, so we talked them into, okay, look, we'll give you free office space, in this building, next to our beautiful River North Recorders. But everything you do, you got to record in the studios. And they agreed to it. So we got them to locate their exploding new music house, right at River North. We were busy around the clock with major clients. That's what really kicked that off. That was my idea, guys.
Yeah, cool. So you built that space.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was an amazing space.
Oh.
Yeah, I was in it a number of times.
Oh, you saw it?
Yeah, because I would go and visit with him, hang with him, at the studio. And,
Yeah.
And he had the synclavier at his home, when he first got it, and then he eventually, brought it there. And,
Right.
And he would show me, look, you can do this. It's on little pieces. And I went, amazing.
It's a whole different way of thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I got one gig of memory on this big, like giant, like record-ish thing. And I'm like, whoa. That's
Right, and
amazing.
it cost $1 zillion.
Yeah. No, I got the thing in my pocket.
Right. Yeah, I got 64 gigs right here
On this little-
on this little thing I just bought at Best Buy. Yeah. It's crazy how it's changed.
So you engineered for those guys?
Yeah, a ton. Worked a bunch with Rick Fritz, who was my apprentice at River North. I brought him in. I taught him how to engineer, and then we kind of assigned him to the Schaefer and Tellis thing. If I wasn't available, my first call actually was for a music house called Joy Art. And the Joy Art was doing so. We did the same thing with them. We had to move into the building on the same floor as the studio. We'll give you free space, but you got to record everything. So we had a, if Joy Art wanted to record and Schaefer and Tellis wanted to record, we had to have people assigned, to those accounts. But yeah, I did stuff for Cathay Airlines. I remember one time they were pitching Cathay on a new campaign. I'm not sure what agency. It might have been Leo Burnett or something. And we worked literally 100 hours one week. I'm not even exaggerating. I mean, it was stupid.
He was gone all the time, I remember too.
Yeah. We were there, 3 a.m, doing mixes. It had to be sung to at 7:30 in the morning. The singers were coming in. It was nuts. And they got the account. And we got the finals at the studio. But stuff you had to do.
So was it more commercials? Or,
Yeah, it was more commercials. But we did a lot of music work too. I mean, I tell the stories of my friend Harry Witz, who was a roadie for us way back. Had teamed up with Bruce Gordon, and they formed a company called DB Sound. And DB was huge. At one point, they did the Los Angeles Olympics, which I think, when was that, 1982 or 84 or something like that? I can't remember. But, DB was huge. They've since gotten bought out by somebody like Clare Brothers, I think. Something like that. But for a while, they were the biggest. And Harry referred some clients to us. He'd have sound system out with so-and-so, and, we're going to be passing Chicago, we got to record some stuff. Where should we go? And I get a call from Harry. Hey, I got David Bowie coming into town for a week. I want to record David Bowie. Yeah, sure. We'll clear the decks. And I worked with David Bowie for a week.
Wow.
It was amazing. We did the overdubs for an ABC Live broadcast. It was a special, ABC special, the Glass Spider Tour. So if you're familiar with that, it kind of pegs the time period. But, we were working on the audio for that. They had piles, literally piles of 2-inch tape. They, guys would bring in with 4 two-wheelers, stacked, 7-8 feet high. This is from the A machine. They have like 3 stacks. It's for the B machine, right? Because you'd sync up 2 24 tracks, with SMPTE time code, and you'd have 46 tracks of audio. Because there has to be a SMPTE stripe on one of the tracks for each machine for it to know where it's at. And the SMPTE would lock up to the video, and they'd have like a rough video running. And so we'd have all these machinery, like trying to chase each other. And this was at the beginning of that time period when all that stuff was possible. And it was doable, but it was really flaky.
Yeah.
A huge pain in the ass. But anyway, so we're working on this stuff. And boy, it came down to, what we kept and we used for the whole broadcast? We used the audience tracks. We overdubbed everything else.
Oh my goodness.
They replayed everything to the existing tape. Like they had to match the tape.
Yeah.
So the drummer went out there and we re-recorded the drum tracks to the rest of the band playing in his headphones.
Wow.
It's like he's playing live, right?
Yeah.
But we get a better capture on the drums and a better performance. And the bass player, blah, blah, blah. And it was tedious and huge. We'd have to make slave reels of stuff to protect the masters. And, there must have been I can't even guess, like at $250 a roll. How much, I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, $30,000 worth of tape or something, you know, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It had to be done.
Yeah.
Anyway, on the Glass Spider tour, a couple of the notables, the guitarist was Steve Stevens, right? And he was there, and all these Marshall amps, you know, wheeled into the studio. The loudest thing we ever had in there. I mean, you could hear it literally down the street. And this is a floated soundproof room.
This is at River North.
That's River North. You could hear it throughout the building. You know, it was
Block away.
oh, it was unbelievable. But that being said, I mean, it sounded good. You know, we actually and then a mic and 2 speakers or something. You know, but he's there. The thing I'm trying to relate to, I'm trying to think how to verbalize this correctly. He was there in costume, in character. It was like, da-da! It was a white jumpsuit, you know, with the lifted up collar and the, you know. And it's like, it's a bunch of guys in a recording studio. Come on, it's just us, you know. And it was like that for him. It was like he's on, the spotlight is on, and we're like, fuck, we're trying to get the buzz to go away, you know, with the alligator clips and stuff. And he's there like it's, it was unbelievable. Nice guy, though. Very, very nice guy. David Bowie was just a sweetheart of a guy and very respectful of everybody and everything and very organized. He was sitting there in a black T-shirt, with blue jeans and a clipboard. Mm-hmm. And he had a checklist. It's like you're building a house. Yeah. You know, he had a checklist of stuff that had to happen and the order that it had to happen in. And he ran up like a foreman. You know, doing this next. We got a half hour to do this. So-and-so's on deck. You know, get ready to do this. You know, it ran like clockwork. And it had to because we had an enormous amount of work to be done. I think he was in the studio actually for 4 days. And we did long sessions, 14-hour days. Because this broadcast date was looming, you know, and they had to get this stuff, you know, recorded. They were going to mix it, I believe, in New York. But one of my favorite stories from this, and I have to relate this, we're listening to the recording. We got the 2 48 tracks going. We got the video going. And we're listening to the iconic song, Fame, right? It comes up, you know, Fame, okay. They start this, you know, okay, great, okay, it's going good. Okay, well, this sounds pretty good, you know? And it gets to the part with the special effect thing that we all know from the record. Fame, 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 you know. And the way that they did that live was that the keyboard player sang "Fame, fame, fame," you know. And it sounded, I'm sitting there next to David Bowie. Okay, we're at the console, you know, and I look across at him like, really? You know, come on, it's the best we can do. And he was like, I know, it really sucks, but that's the way we do it, you know. And I was like, no, this is a TV. No, we can't let that be the thing. And he said, well, I mean, what are we going to do? And I said, the master plan. How'd you do it originally? Oh, well, we very speeded, you know, like I played the piano notes and we very speeded it. Yeah. And then we sang on the notes, you know, and then blah, blah, blah. Well, how long would it take to do that? I don't know, maybe a half hour. Well, let's do it. We did it. We made an exact replica of the original sound, and that's what ended up on the TV show. Yeah. I was so proud of myself. It's the one thing I really said, you know, we got to do this.
Right.
And we did it.
That's really funny.
Yeah. So that had to be a moment, huh?
Oh, it was
recreating the Fame part with the man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing that really struck me though was that he was, you know, it took me asking, how did you do it originally?
Right.
And then it was like a little kid. You're like, oh, well, we did this and then we did that, and you know, and of course we had to, you know, do this. well, let's do it. It was pretty simple. It was funny. It was like this brick wall that he just couldn't get past, and I just knocked down the brick wall.
So at this point in the game, then, you would just periodically play with the Ides, or was that even part of the world you were in the 70s and 80s?
Well, in the it was quite a stretch that when Jim was working with and developing Survivor, so he had his hands full, with that, and they were on a path to success. They were kind of at critical mass for about 2 years before they got the call from Sylvester Stallone and the chance to write The Eye of the Tiger. But before that, I was doing. They played a lot of club gigs and so forth, and their fan base just grew and grew. And I did a number of the live sound dates, and I could see what was going on. It was real obvious. But like until you have a hit record, you don't have a hit record. But they were ready for it. And when that record hit and broke nationally, Jim was off and running for a few years. And by then there was official touring and organized things, and it became a big business. The Ides never had that kind of big business. We were about 10 years
too early.
Too early for that.
Yeah. So did you run sound on tour for them, or did
No, which I would have liked to have done, but I had to. At that point, I was doing the studio thing, and I had a business that I was trying to grow.
So again, just for all of our students, so all those guys that you were working with in the Ides, they all finished college.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah.
And to a good end too. It's like our drummer Mike. His whole life, and it was just to finish out things that were all. I mean, it's who we are. Mike was always a mechanical guy. Like we'd be at rehearsals and he'd be taking apart some little thing or fixing a wah-wah pedal and fidgeting with something. Well, he finished school in mechanical education stuff and also just general stuff, and he opened an auto alarm business back in the days before cars came with the alarm systems and all. So he apprenticed at another business, and then decided to do it for himself. And he had a business that he ran for about 15 years. And he did custom, like before it was heard of, he developed, a way to start your car, remotely. Nobody had that. Yeah. You could, unlock your car and start it, or you could shut it off, just start the heater. He had all this stuff that nobody had. And it was because of his school, that he could do that. He was also playing drums. At the same time, he was in a band called MS Funk. And they played a lot of gigs. But he was running his own business. Jim got into, of course, Survivor. But right before that, he was singing jingles. He became a...
well, that was good money in it.
Oh, absolutely.
That was great money.
Yeah, there still is.
Yeah.
But there's so few to do right now.
Right.
Because jingles aren't the thing.
Right.
The thing that morphed into is voiceovers. If you have an announcer voice, if you can, read copy, and do it the way that the producer wants it, you've got a career. You have a multi-six-figure career doing that. One of the best singers in town, a big resonant voice guy, Jeff Morrow, used to sing a zillion commercials, or he'd be part of an ensemble of, background people. I'd see Jeff all the time as a singer. Well, he made a conscious decision to become a voiceover person. He saw it coming. He knew, and he became the premier voiceover guy, and he's still doing it. And he's got houses all over the country, and he's doing quite well. So he's a great guy too.
So was your degree in music then? When you were finished at conservatory? Did you or what
I never got my degree in music.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I did get a BA.
Okay.
But I never finished that out.
What was the BA in? Just general?
Yeah, just general.
Studies? Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But a lot of music courses.
Yeah.
Well, again, the reason we ask is just because that's the kind of context we're in, with the students that they're studying this, they have the opportunity like you saw when you got to help there. But at the same time, they have to wrestle with the general ed classes and
Sure.
how they're creating.
Well, it's just a lot of common sense. I mean, we're from Berwyn, okay, which is the center of the common sense universe. Your feet are on the ground, and you know the value of a buck, and you shovel your own sidewalk. It's like it's a real. We don't take ourselves real seriously, but we do take what we do seriously. But we don't take ourselves seriously. It's like, come on. So it's important that you have general knowledge in the world. Just, so you know stuff. I mean, I've run into, young people who don't know the simplest things. I mean, history things or it's, and I'm like, I'm dumbfounded. Like, didn't they teach you that in school? Well, I wasn't real interested in that. No, you should know like basic real stuff, in life, besides like your passion. It's great to follow your passion, and you guys are able to teach that with that sliver of passion to these kids who are interested in that. I mean, they didn't have these kind of courses when we were in school. They didn't have recording. They didn't, there was no even film arts or anything. I mean, there wasn't anything, when we were in college. It's so wonderful now that the kids have the opportunity to experience the professional level stuff that you expose them to, and see if they really want to go on and do this, or if it's going to serve some other purpose. If you have a musician, who's taking your recording courses and so forth, which will help him get his music recorded and so forth, that's all to the same end. You have other people who want to be professional recorders. That's a different thing. Or they want to do audio for television, or they want to do audio for live concert touring, or whatever. But the stuff you teach them is going to last a lifetime. The only way that we could learn that stuff was to actually be there and do it and apprentice and ask questions and live it. And you still should do some of that before you expect to be like a chief engineer somewhere.
Sure.
That's another thing. I've had some young people come out of specialized places like Full Sail, and you might want to edit this out. I don't know, but they literally think that they're entitled. They're as much a recording engineer as anybody there ever was. Just because you know a couple things, you got to spend time doing it. You got to be around guys who do it, and you see what really happens in recording sessions and what makes for success and not. It's not all about the facts and figures and the numbers and the stuff. I hope you guys incorporate in your teaching about session psychology. What makes a session move forward? What kind of stumbling blocks have you run into, and what's the workaround for that?
You have a class this semester called Troubleshooting and Studio Etiquette. It deals with both of those things.
Studio etiquette, yeah, like they would set the rules, like how to be. But it's oftentimes the job of the engineer to move the session forward in a positive way without insulting anybody, or losing the client.
Yeah.
Because if you just sit there like a bump on the log, then you're going to get lost. If it, you could easily lose the client that way because, this place isn't happening. Let's go somewhere else. You just want to be a helpful, knowledgeable, happening guy. When you're working with musicians who don't quite have a clear path.
So when did you leave kind of the Chicago environment of recording and kind of, connect yourself to Jim, with his work and his places and his studio? Were you doing this Chicago scene through the 80s and 90s, or which in the 80s did you still stay at? When did you leave River North, in essence?
I left River North in the mid-90s.
Okay.
And I worked with a partner who at the time was a client of mine, actually a music house guy. There was a music house out of Nashville was called Hummingbird. And the guy's name was Matt Thornton. And he wanted to split off from Hummingbird and do an office here in Chicago and do music for advertising business. And so we did a partnership. I was his engineer guy, and he was the music guy. We had a company called Track Attack, and we did that for about 6 years or so. Mildly successful. A few notable things. We redid the Empire commercial with the Empire guy. You know, you've seen him on TV, a bunch. He just passed away a couple of years ago. But that was kind of a thrill because it was very difficult to recreate the sound of those vocal things. I mean, we had to get the right singers in there, your barbershop quartet quality stuff, and it had to sound, 40s-ish, and
You can almost sing it.
and we had to figure out what the hell they were doing, and we had to recreate it, and then we had to, add some different lyrics, and 1-800, and like they were making adjustments to it,
Yeah,
So that was a challenge. But you've heard that a zillion times on the air.
yeah.
Or if you've ever heard a commercial for a place called Mr. Submarine. Mr. Submarine. We did that, and that was a buyout. We should have gotten residuals on that one. It's been on the air a billion times. They just stopped using it this last year.
Wow.
So it had a good 15-year run, probably.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but the Track Attack did a bunch of good work. But the scene in downtown Chicago sort of changed, and a few of the big advertising agencies created in-house music houses, which included our friend Ira Antelis. Right when Schaefer died, Ira went to work for Leo Burnett, and they gave him his own music house. It was in-house at Leo Burnett. So then Leo Burnett didn't need to go to other music houses to do stuff. They had an expert guy who was there, and they gave him the equipment, an engineer. And so things changed in the downtown scene, and the lifespan of Track Attack had come to an end. Now, at the same time, I had never stopped working with Jim. We always worked together. In fact, I was the one who talked him into this studio. Like they were building this house out here in Burr Ridge. And I said, well, what's that? It's a mother-in-law apartment. We're going to have some exercise machines in there. Like, what are you doing? Jim had purchased a Neve console and a Studer 24 track, and we were leasing them down at River North. I said, well, you should put the Neve in your house and the Studer, and within a year, that place is going to pay for itself. Because Jim would constantly be recording. That's his thing. He's got to record. He's paying money to record, even at a discounted. I think that was his equipment. So, but we're talking a lot of money. And sure enough, in less than a year, this space paid for itself. And then of course we changed with the times. And we changed.
So that was early 2000s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we stepped into ADATs for a few minutes. And boy, what an unstable system that was. It was a good idea, but it just didn't hold up. And then we started with Pro Tools. Been there ever since. People ask me if I miss tape. I miss the smell of tape. I miss our salesman, who was a great guy. Bill Rogers was our sales guy from Apex.
Yeah.
God, what a character. He was the best. We do shootouts with through EM tape and BASF and AGFA tape and Apex tape.
We were at Steve Albini's, and they were doing that, and they were all passing around smelling it too.
Yeah,
One guy in the
they
tape.
smell different. Yeah. They all smell different. They all act different. And even though I liked Scotch 250 better than the Ampex, I bought Ampex 456, which was the standard. I mean, 456 was great. It was a great tape, but I liked the smoothness of 3M better. But I liked our sales guy, Bill Rogers. He was just a sweetheart of a guy, always there for me. He'd make trips downtown with boxes of tape, emergency, stuff. We stayed with Bill.
Yeah.
It was great. But besides that, no, I don't miss tape. Not one bit. Yeah, if you're working on a big analog board and you're recording to a good 24-track machine, it's very forgiving. It has a lot of gush to it. Harmonic distortion helps things a lot at times. I don't miss it. I can get that now. With the current softwares, I can get that.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think the 64-bit technology really upped the ante on being able to add plugins that are realistic.
it's made all the difference. We've just recently crossed that threshold where it's, I don't want to be working with a razor blade
Right.
anymore.
And it was nice knowing people like Jeff Comar, that was always pushing the envelope and going, you guys, you need to go here, you need to go here, look at,
Oh, yeah. In this business, in the recording studio business, the music business, a lot of times your fond thoughts or feelings are about the people, that have helped you over the years. Like I'll talk about Bill Rogers, I'll talk about Jeff Comar, Steve Ponte, used to be our Sweetwater rep here in Chicago.
Yeah.
I called Steve to do all of our computer stuff. You really appreciate the friends and the help that people offer you over the years.
How much then did you pivot to this space to work? Like once Jim invested in this, then was this kind of your sole, house that you worked out of, or?
Yeah. I'm here 6 days a week.
Oh, okay.
It's crazy. Jim works 5 days a week. I have outside clients that I work with, so I fit them in between his schedule, and Saturdays are usually wide open for me to put in, outside clients.
Does Jim have a schedule then that he works on that he wants to do there?
Jim's life doesn't work on a regular schedule.
Yeah.
Each week has very particular things about it. So we have to, update the calendar each week as far as he's not going to be here Thursday morning. He's going to be in the Man Cow show, just stuff, and then I know that I put something else in there in that space.
Right.
We're going to be over at Dennis DeYoung's house on Tuesday morning. Okay, so we're not working on the Ides thing here, but I'm going to be over there working for Dennis. Just, he's got a home set up too.
So you just take your drive and collect it and bring it here?
Well, I wish it was as simple as that.
Yeah.
But Dennis is on radar.
Mm.
Yeah. Big pain in the ass. It's a great sounding system, but it's, oh my God, it's like dinosaur time.
Yeah. So you just have to print everything and bring it back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do a lot of that. Yeah, Jim and Dennis have been writing together and working on a new record that Dennis is going to have out probably within this next year, probably at the end of the year or thereabouts. He's got several record companies, real record companies, interested in it. He's got a huge fan base, and he's playing this one right to them. He's giving them Styx. Now Styx is a standalone entity, and they play, and there's things like between them and all that kind of stuff. But Dennis is really going to feed the fans what they want to hear, and it's going to be a success. This stuff is just going to be meticulous and familiar but fresh.
That's fun. It's fun to wake up and have all this variety all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was doing a country thing yesterday. I'm doing rockabilly. I got a blues guy coming in tomorrow morning. I start tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday.
Oh man.
And then in the afternoon, I've got what you call torch singer, keyboard overdub, just all these different types of things going on.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's great.
I got to be one of the busiest independent engineers in Chicago.
Is it mostly just word of mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And history.
Yeah.
Speaking of history, when did Frank come into your mix?
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Frank was in a band called Rampage,
Okay.
and they recorded at my old Tanglewood studios in Brookfield
Okay.
before I created River North downtown. So I met Frank then, and he had expressed an interest in, you know, like doing a recording studio or something. You know, I think I want to, you know, learn about this stuff. And so when we built River North, we brought in Frank as a helper.
Yeah.
And he was literally like bottom rung, you know, get out the broom and
Gopher.
yeah, yeah. And but he picked up on the stuff really quickly, and he began doing the late night sessions. You know, like the R&B guys would come in, and they want to do, you know, big loud pounding kick drum, you know, all night type sessions. And Frank was willing to do that stuff, so he got the call, you know, and he learned a lot of techniques and a lot of wisdom, you know.
For the radio audience, it's Frank Pappalardo, who is one of our instructors at the university that Larry so graciously subbed for a couple of weeks. And
It was fun.
so what did you think of our students' work that they showed you? Did they show you any of their
Oh, yeah.
their projects and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Because they're one of the things that Albie and I, we just talk about all the time of, you know, what is it that we have to give them, you know, because there is so much in the new virtual libraries, you know, in terms of sounds and, you know, when you look at the Stephen Slade drum, you know, components, you know, how good they
just
are.
wonderful,
you know,
yeah.
And, you know, and then you look at, you know, just all the plugins that they have for, you know, synths, keyboards, and, you know, even basses and that's their world. Those kids that grew up and were born in '95, you know, and later, they just know that, and they, you know, and they create their beats, you know, which are in essence tracks that they try to, you know, get to artists that they feel like are gonna have some, you know, longevity with. And so what did you think of that? You know, some of the creations that you heard, you know, there, and what would you give them as advice, you know, because that's the world, that's the new world of, you know, kind of creation, you know, for them at least.
Right. Boy, you know, it's so easy to sound like an old fart when you start giving wisdom on these things. I'll simplify the one side of the argument. Just because you can string together a bunch of sampled pieces and put them in a tempo, it doesn't make you a songwriter. You know, like a beat with a chord change isn't really a song. And so I would tell people to figure out, you know, good melodies, figure out good lyrics, you know, what makes this song what it is. You know, analyze good stuff. You know.
Remember that, guys, analyze good stuff.
Well, I mean, literally, I would start every day in my control room with Steely Dan playing on the speakers. And it would tune my head and my sensibilities to good stuff. I mean, that was my standard. I still use Steely Dan if I'm setting up a big sound system. You know, when I first walk in, you're setting up the stage and blah, blah. I walked out to the board. I play Steely Dan over the sound system to see where it's at, because I know exactly where it's supposed to be. And it's just the concept of, you know, really have a mastery, you know, of what you're trying to do and improve on. Now, that's not to say that you shouldn't try things. Just, you know, like you gotta like knock through those brick walls and you gotta do things. But, you know, do it with a humbleness, where you realize that you don't know all the chord changes of that Lionel Richie song, or you don't know what the heck Ambrosia was doing in the background vocals and this over there, or yeah, like I know who Take Six is, but what are they doing? You know, there's some real music stuff. If you're going to be a music person, that you have to admire and strive for, and it's not just slapping together a bunch of pre-recorded things, which sound great, you know, no doubt. You know, one observation that I had with the students, and it was astoundingly reoccurring to me. Could I use blue language here, or
Sure,
is
go
it? Well, it's like each student, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, but like, why is this going on? They had a crap load of plugins on everything. And it kind of goes against the philosophy of, if you're recording something good with a good mic and a good preamp, it should sound good. Now, if you want to twist it and make it into something else, okay, like I buy that. You're creating a different thing. So, but it seemed as though everybody had to notch out this and peak up this and there was like 5 and 6 plugins on every channel. I'm going, well, what is? You should be able to have like 2 plugins on a mix, and it should sound pretty good, And then if you have a problem somewhere, whatever. But I couldn't believe how everybody was
overindulging in plugins.
Yeah.
I think it's just because partly they have them and they want to use them.
Well,
and
they can.
and they can.
So
And
right, sure.
But I don't
It's
think
like,
they
why
always-
not?
I don't think they're really seeing the residual of that. Because sometimes they're just making it worse.
Well, that's exactly my point.
Yeah.
And sometimes those truisms, less is more. If teach them self-restraint and that kind of stuff. Sure, there's the one thing, I can do a lot of something to something and it becomes something else. Okay, I get that. But on the other side of the coin, they should be able to have in their psyche, this sounds great. I don't need to do anything to this. Maybe just add a little brightness here, or a touch of reverb, or I don't know, room. I don't know, maybe nothing. It sounds great. Like appreciate good things when you hear them. And don't immediately jump into trying to change it.
So in essence, like the advice would be is, strip out the plugins and then gradually add stuff to that will enhance
Yeah,
it.
just a little counterintuitive, like the building up a mix. I mean, when you build up a mix, like you want to get each thing so it sounds really good. Okay, fine. But as you're saying, like a lot of the things now sound really good. If you're using a slate drum replacement stuff, that stuff, just the way it is, sounds really good. Don't screw it up. I think I'm going to stop at that point.
Yeah. Did you find that some of the newer music was interesting to you in the way that they kind of conceived it? And because I think you had a pretty good cross section of musicians in that class. Some were doing more hip hop oriented, some were doing more vocal based, some were doing more guitar based.
Yes. Yeah.
And
they were all valid. I found myself drifting while I was not listening to like the engineering aspect of things, and just like what are they doing here? Is this good? And I don't want to be a song snob, okay, which is real easy to be. I was looking for, is there a song here? A couple things sounded like, okay, that sounds like a good song. I liked it. A couple things were just exercises in something. And not enough meat in the music, in the song. I'll say that. Engineering-wise, everybody pretty much, knew what they were going for and they were getting there. We really didn't have any crash and burns or, big problems or anything like that. Although I was astounded by the number of plugins, almost everything.
we'll work with that. Now that I have it, on document.
But we're always trying to get better. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But no, that is a seriously, strong point. That what's going to give it longevity is the song, the actual song.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
memorable.
Yeah, the quality of that. The best bass drum sound in the world is not going to make for a hit record. It's just not. But there are memorable things in hit songs that sound cool. Like an amazing snare drum or something like that. You go, wow, it's a cool sound snare drum. But that's not why it's a hit song. And anyway, so I was just on that. There was one thing that I brought up in class that I was surprised that nobody had ever covered or thought about. But there is an ideal volume to listen to music at. There's a zone. And I brought my sound pressure meter, and I was trying to set the playbacks so I was in that zone. Some people are used to listening really soft. And that's valid. You can hear things like that. But then if you listen really, really loud, it shows you other things. It reveals other things. And of course, that's all affected by your speakers and your room and all that kind of stuff. But you have to like touch all those bases. You have to understand what you're hearing. But the human ear, will protect itself at a certain point. So if you're listening too loud, it'll self-compress. It actually changes the way you're perceiving the sound.
Oh, it's like dilating, like your eyes.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that. Or if you're listening super soft, you probably won't be hearing the low frequencies the way that they really are. Like that'll give you some mid-range detail that might surprise you. But they should listen in a volume zone. Even if that's not where they naturally gravitate to.
What dB do you sweet spot?
Well, they say that it's between 87 and 91 or something like that dB at the listening position. Mm-hmm. So if you're back from the speakers, 3 feet or whatever, like take the measurement there, set the volume so that's what the playback's at, and then you have the best chance of telling what's going on. But of course, cross-reference it, real loud, real soft.
So when you're mixing, you mostly mix it, you're kind of hanging out in that dB range.
Oh yeah. I'm listening at about 89 dB most of the time. And then Jim will sit down and play back at about 120 dB. And that will reveal things.
You put your work, muffs on.
Well, literally, I leave the room for the playback and it'll come back.
I've done that a number of times.
It's a process.
How do you feel, since you do a lot of live sound, do you feel like that's hard on your ears then? I mean, because you're
it is
louder than...
Yeah, physically is. I have to do that at intervals. I can't do too much live work back to back to back. I just know that. And at this age, I have to protect my ears. If I go to a concert to hear somebody, I'm wearing earplugs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it just doesn't matter because I can hear fine. If I put it in earplugs, I can hear fine. It's softer, or maybe the high-end curve is a little, rolled off with the plugs. But I can mentally adjust to that, and I'm protected.
Yeah.
And I feel, okay, this is great. Very rarely will I not wear plugs at a live show. Yeah.
Did you have a stint wrestling with tinnitus ever?
Yeah, playing in the Ides in the early 70s, live. Like you don't realize,
Holy cow, that you were young.
the damage that you're doing.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I act just the opposite. I'm very protective. Mm-hmm. And it's just a whole lot of common sense.
Yeah.
But literally, like your ears are the best they're ever going to be. Please protect them, when you can. If you're sitting at a concert in the second row and the subwoofers are in your face, wear plugs.
Yeah.
It's going to be louder than hell anyway. Mm-hmm. Just wear plugs. Wisdom of the ages.
Yeah.
No,
Makes
we
sense.
both have had that issue too. We have to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we want to keep doing this, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to jeopardize my ears
Right.
if I can help it. We switched over to wearing in-ear monitors on stage about 15 years ago, but it changed everything about the Ides stage. I mean, we went through a series of bad monitor mixer guys, like back to back to back to back. By the third time or fourth time, I can't remember. Where you got something herself like this, and the guys are trying to get it as loud as possible, and the Ides are exactly the opposite of that. We'd rather have softer monitors and just have it sound good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We finally had to shut off the monitors. We said, just shut off the monitors. We'll hear the house. We'll be fine. And we were. And it was that gig. It was like, okay, we have to get in-ear monitors. This is stupid. We'll never go through that again. Mm-hmm. And it changed everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you can make decisions.
On your own.
Yeah, on your own. You're protecting you got these things in your ears. And we don't have the totally closed ones, which are more expensive, but the form-fitting. We just use, good earbuds, really high quality ones. And it blocks out a lot of the sound, but not all of it. Mm-hmm. You can hear just fine. If you need to hear more, you take one out.
Well, I think that was good.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was some great words and great wisdom for the youth.
Cool, well, I hope,
I'm honored to be here, by the way.
Yeah, thank
cool.
you, Larry.
So-
I hope people can take what I'm saying to heart, not as, just some old crap or somebody sounding cranky about something or whatever. But you try to impart wisdom. I mean, like you've lived, experienced a number of things. So you guys have got a ton of experience, and you're trying to pass this along to people to help them better along their way, so they don't have to trip over all the cobblestones along the way. And if people can listen to these kind of informational things and take it that way, like this is valuable information, I should make notes on this, or like that kind of thing, then I feel our time is well spent.
Definitely.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
You bet.
Blessings.
Yeah.